Hi, I'm Faith. This is the story of the disembodied voice. Don't turn out the lights. It was a hot spring night in Florida. Chrissy had just gotten home from school and settled down to do her homework in her old wooden house. It had been in the family for over 100 years, and it creaked and groaned as the winds blew. To Chrissy, they were the familiar sounds of a house full of love, one that never used to be silent. She fondly remembered her grandmother cooking, bashing pots and pans in the kitchen. She'd yell, "Chrissy-Lou!" the nickname she'd given her when dinner was ready. But the house was quiet after school now. Chrissy settled in her room and began her homework, waiting for her mom to get back home. Her dog sat beside her. Chrissy had just finished her first math problem when she heard the door slam downstairs. Mom must be home early. Chrissy called down to her. "Mom?" There was no response. Probably just the wind, she thought. She shrugged it off and continued her homework. An hour passed. She'd almost finished her first assignment when she faintly heard the sounds of pots and pans clanging downstairs. She hadn't heard Mom come in the door. "Chrissy-Lou," a voice called from downstairs. "1 second," Chrissy responded, finishing up her final math problem. "Chrissy-Lou," the voice called again. Chrissy closed her books and walked downstairs, calling her dog to follow. But he wouldn't budge. She shrugged it off and walked downstairs and into the kitchen. No one was there, but what she saw sent a chill down her spine. Every pot and pan in the house had been stacked neatly in the middle of the room. Cabinets lay open and empty. The side door flew open beside her. In the doorway stood Chrissy's mom, groceries in hand. But if she was only just getting home, who laid out the pots and pans? Mom looked around at the scattered pots and pans, confused. "You helping me cook tonight, Chrissy-Lou?" "I didn't do this," replied Chrissy, as she and her mom looked around the kitchen. "Then who did?" asked her mom. "Chrissy-Lou, dinner's ready, Chrissy-Lou." I'm Faith, and this is the story of the woman in the well. Don't turn out the lights. Each year, Rachel's mother would drop her off at her grandma's house for their yearly visit. Grandma lived down a long dirt road, miles from neighbors, tucked away in a beautiful forest. At night, Rachel would take Grandma's dog Harry out for a long walk in the woods. As she clipped on Harry's leash and stepped outside to begin their walk, Rachel's phone buzzed. It surprised her. She didn't usually have service so far away from town. An unknown number had sent her a text. "Come to the well," it read. She tried to respond and ask who it was, but her message wouldn't go through. She shrugged it off. It was probably a wrong number anyway. Harry pulled her along the dirt road, picking up a scent. She allowed him to lead her as she looked up at the beautiful moon through the trees. Suddenly, Harry stopped. He began growling at what was in front of him. Looking around, Rachel realized she was in unfamiliar territory. She'd never walked this way before. She strained her eyes to see what Harry was barking at up ahead. There stood a large stone well in the middle of the pathway. She'd never seen it before. Curious, she crept toward the well with her cell phone flashlight and peered down to the bottom. But the well had dried up. All she could see was a bit of wet dirt and darkness. "Hello?" she called down playfully, listening to the echo bouncing back at her in the blackness. Her cell phone buzzed again. It was another text, but this time it was a picture of her. She jumped back in shock, tripping over a tree root, her phone flying in the air and shattering down beside her. She and Harry ran back toward the house. Her grandma tried to calm her. The well was old and dried up, she explained. In fact, it was odd she stumbled across it tonight. Contractors were coming tomorrow to cement it over. Rachel tried to show her grandma the picture she'd been sent, but it had disappeared. Her grandma made her some tea and Rachel fell asleep on the couch. Early in the morning, she was awoken by the sound of a cement truck backing up and her cell phone ringing incessantly. Half asleep, Rachel picked up her shattered phone and held it to her ear. "Hello?" she answered.
"Come to the well,"
said a voice on the other line.
"They're burying me."
Rachel leapt up and ran as fast as she could, but she was too late. The cement truck was driving away, and a pile of gravel lay where the well had been. Hurriedly, she picked up her phone and dialed back the number. It rang. Then she heard a ringing on the other line. The ringtone emanated from the ground deep, deep below her, buried in the darkness. Until the ringing stopped.
"Hello?"
I'm Faith, and this is the story of the maid in Suite 23. Don't turn out the lights. Zach and his mother could barely see the road ahead as they drove home from their family holiday. They couldn't see more than a foot in front of their car as the snow fell down like sheets on the window shield. Tired and scared, they breathed a sigh of relief when they saw a sign up ahead for a place to wait out the storm. The Inn at Mudford. They'd spend the night and finish the drive in the morning when the storm had passed. The old inn smelled like moist wood and mothballs and felt eerily empty. They were greeted by an old innkeeper. He informed them excitedly that they were his only guest, and so he'd give them his favorite suite to stay in. He led them to Suite 23. He showed them the first room. It was large and luxurious, with a king bed and large windows. Then he showed them down the hall to the second room, where Zach would stay. It was smaller with a twin bed. Back when people used to travel with staff, the innkeeper explained, this is where the maid would sleep. Once he was done with his tour, the innkeeper bid them goodnight and left the room. Zach got ready for bed. That night, Zach was awoken by a faint knock on the door. Turn down service, a voice faintly called from beyond the closed door. No, thank you, responded Zach. But then he heard the knock a second time. Zach stood up frustrated. What kind of maid visited in the middle of the night? He opened the door, but no one was there. Perhaps he was dreaming, he thought. He closed the door, locked it, and got back into bed. But something strange happened to Zach as he slept. When he awoke, all his clothes were neatly folded and put away. His bed was made around him, and his hair was carefully combed. He gathered his things and went to the front desk. Mom was already in the middle of checking out, clearly losing patience with the old innkeeper as he filled out his paperwork by hand. She went to get the car as Zach waited with the bags. The innkeeper silently stood behind the desk watching Zach as he stared out the window. The innkeeper thanked Zach for his stay. It can get quiet around here with just me and the maid who died 200 years ago. A chill went down his spine. Zach hurried his bags outside. The maid couldn't be 200 years old. That was impossible. He Googled the inn at Mudford, trying to find answers. Headline after headline popped up. The maid who haunts the Mudford Inn. Mudford Inn, the most haunted inn. Suddenly, Zach knew who knocked on his door. He knew who kept the innkeeper company. And he knew who tidied up his room in the middle of the night. It was the maid in Suite 23. Who died 200 years ago. This is the story of the traveling doll maker. Don't turn out the lights. The story took place in a very small village a long, long time ago. Little William walked to school along a familiar road when one day he passed something strange. In an open field that had long remained empty stood a traveling dollmaker's caravan. The caravan was breathtaking, displaying realistic, lifelike, beautiful little boy and girl dolls arranged neatly in colorful rows. William stopped and stared at the dolls, mesmerized, when the dollmaker stepped out from behind his dolls. Do you like my creations? Asked the dollmaker. They're beautiful, responded William, unable to look away. Will you make me one? No, said the dollmaker. They're far too valuable. William pleaded and pleaded with the dollmaker. He'd said he'd steal. He'd sell all his possessions. He'd do anything if only the dollmaker would just make him a beautiful doll. Finally, the dollmaker responded. All right, but each of these dolls is based off of someone I know. They're my greatest joy. If I were to make one for you, you'd have to give me a gift that's equally as valuable in return. Anything. The Dollmaker smiled wide. Bring me back the most valuable thing in your home, and I'll make you a doll. I don't have anything of value, but my father might. I'll make you a deal then, said the Dollmaker. Tomorrow morning, bring me your father's greatest joy, and I'll make you a doll. They shook hands. That evening, William ran home after school. He searched his father's office for the perfect thing to bring back to the Dollmaker, but he was scared his father might notice if something too valuable went missing, so he looked for something he could fool the Dollmaker with. He found a golden painted rock on the bookshelf. His father would probably never notice it was missing, and the Dollmaker would never know it wasn't his father's greatest joy. Proud of himself for his clever trick, William walked back to the Dollmaker in the morning. He handed him the rock with anticipation. This is not your father's most prized possession, said the Dollmaker, throwing the rock to the ground. I do not like liars. If you want me to make you a doll, come back with your father's greatest joy. That night, while his father was at work, William searched high and low for the most expensive thing he could find. He opened the safe to find solid gold cufflinks. He surmised they must be worth a fortune. Surely the Dollmaker would want these. The next day he returned to the Dollmaker with cufflinks in hand. Is this what you believe to be your father's greatest joy? Asked the Dollmaker. Yes, said William. The Dollmaker examined the cufflinks. I still don't believe you, he said. And now I'm growing angry. I leave in the morning. This is your last chance. Tomorrow you will bring me your father's greatest joy, if you want me to make you a doll. Growing desperate, William ran home with his cufflinks as the sun went down, hoping to find what the Dollmaker required. He burst into his father's office to find him home from work, toiling away at his desk. Where were you, son? Asked his father, smiling. I was worried. What would I do if something happened to you? A chill went down William's spine when he realized what he'd just heard. You see, his father's greatest joy was him, and he couldn't very well give himself to the Dollmaker. He resolved to go back to the shop in the morning and tell the Dollmaker the deal was off. The Dollmaker was packing up his shop as William approached. I'm sorry, said William, as he looked one last time at the beautiful dolls. I cannot give you my father's greatest joy, after all, because my father's greatest joy is me. Oh, but you can, said the Dollmaker. His face turned hard as stone. That's how I make all my dolls. William's blood went cold when he looked at the dolls again, finally seeing them clearly. Every doll had realistic, terrified eyes like children trapped, frozen, and scared. He tried to turn and run, but his body stiffened. It was too late. The Dollmaker had his new doll, and William's father lost his greatest joy. The caravan traveled down the road to a new town, this time carrying William, just another doll on a shelf. Don't turn out the lights. Ever since Sara was young, she always had a power she kept secret. Whatever she drew came true. Every day she'd play with her best friend Elizabeth. They'd play on magical creations that came straight from Sara's imagination. But as the girls got older, they grew apart. Sara threw herself deeper into painting while Elizabeth played sports and started hanging out with her friend Jessica more often. However, the two still maintained a tradition of meeting up in front of school and walking home together. Until one day, Sara waited outside for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth never came. And then it happened again the next day. After days and days of Elizabeth not showing up, Sara confronted her at school. Why won't you walk home with me? She asked. I walk home with Jessica now. It's no big deal. Sometimes things change. Sara cursed at Elizabeth and screamed hateful things. Heartbroken, she ran home. She grabbed an old drawing of the two of them and tore it in half. The next day at school, when Sara went to apologize to Elizabeth, Elizabeth didn't recognize her. She simply looked at her with a blank stare. Later that day, she noticed Jessica whispering something in Elizabeth's ear, as though they were talking about her. She became enraged again. That night, she taped the drawing back together so Elizabeth would remember who she was. But then she made another drawing. Clearly, Jessica was poisoning Elizabeth's mind, and she had to be stopped. Jessica didn't come to school the next day. Elizabeth remembered Sara again, and without Jessica in the picture, the two met up in front of the school and walked home together once again. They hung out like old times in Sara's room. Sara was ecstatic to have her old friend back. But when she went downstairs to get lemonade, Elizabeth discovered Sara's drawings. As she flipped through the drawings on Sara's desk, her life flashed before her. She saw drawings of their childhood, meeting up to walk home after school, a ripped photo taped back together. But it was when she saw the last drawing that her blood ran cold. She ran out of Sara's house and down the street to Jessica's house, where she sprinted upstairs. She walked into Jessica's room, and there she saw her. Jessica was lying in bed with no mouth. It was the last drawing she had seen on Sara's desk. When Sara came back with lemonade for Elizabeth, she panicked. Her drawings were strewn about, and Elizabeth was gone. She knew that Elizabeth would never forgive her, and she couldn't live with the despair of knowing that her best friend hated her. Then and there, she ripped up every drawing she'd made, erasing herself from Elizabeth's memories for life and putting Jessica back to normal. She went to school the next day, a stranger to her best friend, and she never drew again.